Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 3rd, 2017.
206 here on the great WRKO, 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, my friends, there is something going on in our culture that we don't want to discuss. And if you notice, immediately, I'm talking within hours, the left, liberals, Democrats, many in the media, immediately jump towards gun control and politicizing a massacre without even knowing all of the facts. And in particular, there are two members of Congress, both of whom, why does it always have to be us, from the People's Republic of Massachusetts, two moonbats, Congresswoman Catherine Clark from Methuen, and of course the ultimate moonbat, Seth Moonbat Moulton, both of whom deliberately boycotted the moment of silence in Congress to pay respect to the victims and their families. And both of them think that they're taking the equivalent of a congressional knee, as if somehow this is an act of heroism and bravery and courage on their part, because the answer must be more gun control. Now, before I even address the gun control issue, when somebody is murdered in cold blood, in this heinous, horrific way, to stand up for 1 minute in a moment of silence is a sign of respect for those that were killed. It's to honor them, their families, their friends, their loved ones. For now, liberals, or at least these two in particular, to not even be able to do this, to be this disrespectful, this insulting, this frankly morally obscene, and then to even be congratulated for their atrocious, frankly repugnant, despicable behavior by the Boston Globe and by much of the liberal media in this state, to me, there's almost no words to describe this. There is no words for me to describe what these two did. And I think one of the reasons why they did it, and I think this gets to the heart of the issue, is the dehumanization that now is taking place by certainly left-wing political factions of their so-called political rivals and opponents. And just one quick story I think illustrates everything. CBS senior executive, she was a vice president, Haley Geftman Gold. She served as a senior counsel for strategic transactions at CBS, was fired Monday afternoon by the network. Why was she fired? Because she went on Facebook and in a social media post, she wrote this, quote, "If the shooting victims wouldn't do anything when children were murdered," in other words, because country music listeners tend to be Republican, Trump supporters, so she says, well, they wouldn't push for gun control after Sandy Hook. That's what she means. If the shooting victims wouldn't do anything when children were murdered, I have no hope that repugs, not even Republicans, repugs, like they're repugnant, that repugs will ever do the right thing. I'm actually not even sympathetic because country music fans often are Republican gun toters. This is a senior executive at CBS. Now, this story broke. There was a ferocious backlash on social media. CBS, under tremendous pressure, cut her loose. Now, and they did the right thing. But to me, the bigger issue is not why she was fired, but why she was hired. Because when you get to that position at CBS, believe me, I know, when you get to the upper echelons of the media, you are thoroughly vetted. They know your political views, they know your religious views, they know your social views, they know exactly where you stand on all the issues. The only mistake that she made was that, frankly, she was dumb enough to put on Facebook to publicly express what many in the media privately think. And frankly, what many liberals and many Democrats privately think. And I'll tell you what they think. There's no secret here because they've already told us. Those who voted for Trump, those who are conservative, those who are patriotic, those who live in middle America, those who go to events like country music, are deplorables. They're neo-Nazis. They're racists. They're bigots. They're fascists. They're sexists. They're nativists. They're homophobes. They're Islamophobes. In other words, they're fascist scum. That's really what they're saying. They're deplorable. They're irredeemable, as Hillary Clinton said about them. You're fascist scum. You're scum. And so, if fascist scum gets slaughtered at a country music concert, who cares? In their view, you're just improving the human race. Good. Kill more of them. Good. Who needs them? They're polluting the gene pool. That's what they really think deep down. That's what they really think. That's what many of them think. And I think this explains in many ways why, because to me this is unconscionable. I don't care what your political views are. I really don't. I don't want you killed at a concert or anywhere. And when I hear about it, my first reaction is, what can I do to help? I want to pray for you. I want you to, if you're fighting for your life, I want you to survive. Can we donate blood? Can we do anything to help these people that are now fighting for their very lives? My first reaction is not, how do I score political points? How do I advance my agenda? As if those bodies mean nothing. As if their lives mean nothing. As if they're just tools, means to a political end, to advance a political agenda. But when you look down upon your fellow Americans, when you dehumanize them, when you deny their basic humanity, and that's what that CBS executive did, and that's what Seth Moulton does, that's what Catherine Clark does, that's what Hillary Clinton does. This is very dangerous for the country. Because I'll tell you this, we've had many massacres in the past. We have. All the way back, you name it, all kinds of massacres, okay? With the British, with the Indians, I could go on and on. We can survive massacres. I'll tell you what we can't survive. We can't survive when political factions in this country so hate their fellow Americans that they deny their basic humanity. Then we've reached a fundamental dividing point, frankly, very close to the Civil War of 1861 to 1865. That gulf, that bridge, that chasm is almost now unbridgeable. I'm just being very honest with you. And so to my shock and horror, maybe I shouldn't be, but I was, late night comedian after late night comedian. When in fact, the one time the country needs to laugh a little bit. I don't know about you. I was depressed. I was somber. I sat in my office after yesterday's show for 2 hours. Brittany can testify to this. I could barely move. What's happening to America? What's happening to this country? How can this massacre take place? The poor people that are fighting for their very lives. What their parents, what their children, what their family members, friends must be going through. Those that, like that poor Rhonda LaRock woman who lost their mom from Tewksbury. But instead, listen now to Jimmy Kimmel. After choking back some tears, and I don't know why lately he's been crying a lot. He cried when they tried to repeal Obamacare. He cries whenever there's a left-wing cause du jour, cause of the day, that somehow he wants to push. He goes on his late-night show and he starts crying. Okay? So he was crying again last night. Listen to him just rant and rave about gun control. Roll it, Brittany.
I've been reading comments from people who say this is terrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. But I disagree with that intensely, because of course there's something we can do about it. There are a lot of things we can do about it. But we don't, which is interesting, because when someone with a Beard attacks us, we tap phones, we invoke travel bans, we build walls, we take every possible precaution to make sure it doesn't happen again. But when an American buys a gun and kills other Americans, then there's nothing we can do about that. And Second Amendment, I guess, our forefathers wanted us to have AK-47s, is the argument, I assume. Orlando, Newtown, Aurora, San Bernardino, every one of these shootings, the murder used automatic or semi-automatic rifles, which are not weapons used for self-defense. They're weapons designed to kill large numbers of people in the shortest possible amount of time. And this guy reportedly had 10 of them in his room, apparently legally. At least some of them were there legally. Why is that allowed? I don't know why our so-called leaders continue to allow this to happen. Or maybe a better question, why do we continue to let them to allow it to happen?
All right. Now, but this is so obvious, like shooting fish in a barrel. Jimmy, you oppose the travel ban. You oppose the wall. You oppose cracking down on Islamists. So how come all of a sudden now you say it's a great thing that we're doing this towards Islamic foreign terrorists, but now you want to take away rights from Americans? I mean, again, your argument makes no sense, but let that go. But he was just building up because he wants us to pass certain pieces of legislation. Really, what is it? Roll it, Brittany.
You know what will happen? We'll pray for Las Vegas. Some of us will get motivated. Some of us won't get motivated. The bills will be written. They'll be watered down. They'll fail. The NRA will smother it all with money, and over time we'll get distracted. We'll move on to the next thing, and then it will happen again and again. And last night, the White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said this is not the time, or actually it was today, this morning, she said it was not the time for political debate. And I don't know, we have 59 innocent people dead. It wasn't their time either. So I think now is the time for political debate. President Trump is visiting Las Vegas on Wednesday. He spoke this morning. He said he's praying for those who lost their lives. You know, in February, he also signed a bill that made it easier for people with severe mental illness to buy guns legally. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, a number of other lawmakers who won't do anything about this because the NRA has their balls in a money clip, also sent their thoughts and their prayers today, which is good. They should be praying. They should be praying for God to forgive them for letting the gun lobby run this country, because it is it's so crazy. Right now, there are loopholes in the law that let people avoid background checks if they buy a gun privately from another party, if they buy a gun online or at a gun show. So I want to show you something. These are the faces of the senators who days after this...
Okay, stop it right there. Stop. And he goes on about Orlando, and then it just goes on and on. Okay, forget that he's politicizing it. Forget now, notice, they will never blame radical Islam, but man, they go after the NRA every freaking time. But here's the bigger point, okay, as the mother of all points, as Saddam Hussein would put it. Everything what he just said is a lie. Everything. He says there are no background checks. There are background checks. What is this guy talking about? There's nothing but background checks. That's point number one. So he says, oh, but there's this bipartisan effort for background checks. Why won't the Republicans vote for that? There already are background checks in place. So that's already been passed. Point number one. Point number two, the bill that he's referring to, the one in February, has nothing to do with mental illness. Nothing. That's another Chuck Schumer Democratic talking point. A lie. It has to do with people on Social Security, in other words, elderly people, being able to have access to guns. Because, you know, if you're 75 or 80 and somebody wants to break in and steal your money and mug you or kill you, you also have a right to defend yourself. Mentally ill people under the law cannot buy guns. That's another lie. So then Ben Cardin came out, the Democrat from Maryland, and said, well, we should ban the sale of automatic firearms, like machine guns. They've been banned since the Great Depression. Hillary Clinton comes out and says, oh, imagine if the shooter had a silencer on that AR-15. Oh, my God, there would have been even more dead bodies. Have you ever shot an AR-15? Even with a silencer, it doesn't suppress the noise. You need to have earplugs on. It's so freaking loud. In other words, they are talking about issues that they have no idea what they're talking about. Literally, they don't know what they're talking about. We want background checks. It's already there. We don't want mentally ill people to buy guns. It's already there. We don't want the sale of machine guns or automatic weapons. It's already there. Oh, okay, put on a silencer. Silencer would not have stopped the noise. You still would have heard it loud and clear as he was mowing people down. Everything that they propose has either nothing to do with what took place in Las Vegas or would have done nothing to have prevented it. Never let a crisis go to waste. They lie, and lie.
Good. They should be praying. They should be praying for God to forgive them for letting the gun lobby run this country, because it is it's so crazy. Right now, there are loopholes in the law that let people avoid background checks if they buy a gun privately from another party, if they buy a gun online or at a gun show.
You know what Jimmy Kimmel's problem is? Seriously, I think he's letting Chuck Schumer write his monologues for him. Because that was straight out of good old Chuck Hughes' playbook. Freddie and Beverly. Go ahead, Freddie. Hello, Freddie. Let's go to Mike in Derry, New Hampshire. Go ahead, Mike.
Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I just want to start off by saying that I'm absolutely disgusted and heartbroken for everybody involved in this. Just to see the way that this country is going, it's absolutely heartbreaking. But to see how the left immediately turns this to gun control is absolutely disgusting. They don't even let bodies cool off before they open their mouths and just spurt whatever comes to their head. I mean, first of all, a silencer, they're suppressors because they don't silence noise, they just suppress it. Second of all, with all these laws that they're trying to pass, I mean, last time I checked, murder was illegal. Criminals don't go by laws, so it's all they're doing is just taking guns away from me and every other law-abiding citizen that, my pistol has stayed in my safe. I've not once seen it sprout legs, run off, and kill somebody. Just to see how they politicize everything. It's just like, it becomes a career for these people, It's like they're supposed to be in there to protect us. And all they do is just manipulate people into thinking, whatever they speak is truth. I mean, they couldn't be further from the truth or reality. It's sad to see where the country is going.
Mike, look, you're dead on, and thank you for that call. Look, to me, if you want the checkmate argument, the conclusive, irrefutable argument, let's just pull out of America just for a second, okay? Forget Second Amendment, forget right to bear arms, just for a second, just forget all of it. The country in Europe with the strictest gun control laws. I mean, this is stricter than anything we could imagine in America, in Canada, most places on earth, is France. France, it's illegal to buy almost any kind of a gun. I'm talking a little pea shooter is illegal in France. Well, what happened over a year ago? At a major theater in downtown Paris, ISIS terrorists got a hold of machine guns and literally mowed people in the theater down. It wasn't 59 dead, it was 137 dead, with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more injured and maimed and crippled. So you can have the strictest gun control laws in the world. It's still not going to prevent the massacre. Just ask the French. But you know what it did do? It made every single one of those victims utterly defenseless. And so the question is this: why are there so many more mass shootings in the last 25 to 30 years? Is it the guns, or is it something deeper? That story, your calls, next. 2:37 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, so what we keep hearing from the left, from the media, from Democrats, in fact, Nancy Pelosi just yesterday said, let's form a bipartisan commission to examine so-called gun violence. And the left's answer is always attack the Second Amendment and chip away at people's gun rights. Take away the guns. Take away the guns. Or whatever. More background checks. Or they always come up with something. Silencers, which are not really silencers. They just suppress it a little bit, but let all that go. I'm 48. Okay? 2 years away from 50. When I grew up in the 70s and 80s, mass shootings were almost unheard of. Okay, there was the big massacre at the University of Texas, but that guy literally had a brain tumor. In other words, there were some exceptions, but for the most part, mass shootings were almost unheard of. It has really only been in the last 25 to 30 years where this epidemic of mass shootings, of mass violence, has really taken place. And so the question is, why? Now, if you're a liberal, you think, well, it's the technology, it's the guns. But that's not true. I mean, it's blatantly, factually, obviously not true. For example, my dad was an avid hunter. I can't tell you how many guns we had in our home. My dad had an M16, an American military-style rifle. He had shotguns. He had handguns. My dad had about 10 guns. He was an avid outdoorsman, a sportsman, and a hunter. My grandfather, after he left the old country, got himself a farm. And so as many farmers, to protect his livestock, remember, this is Canada now, so you're protecting your livestock from dogs, wolves, badgers, wolverines. I mean, he had an arsenal. He needed it to protect the livestock and, frankly, protect his family. You never heard of mass shootings. So, were guns widely available? Yes. Did a lot of people own guns? Yes. So what changed? It's not the guns. They've been around. They were aplenty before. So what's changed? What's happened in the last 25 to 30 years? And what is to me incredible is that we won't even have a discussion. It's either gun control or nothing. Gun control or nothing. And to me, let me just tell you what I think is clearly obvious. Something has profoundly changed in our culture. Something has changed in the kind of human beings that we're starting to produce. There is something sick going on. Not just in America, it's happening all over the Western world. And so the question is, what is it? Because it's not the guns. My grandfather had them, my father had them, my neighbors had them, everybody I knew had them. So what's changed? Well, I can tell you definitively several things that have changed. Now, whether they're a factor or not, if you want to have a discussion, let's have a discussion. What has clearly changed in the last 30 years, this is undeniable, according to the Mayo Clinic, is that 70% of all American adults are on some kind of a prescription drug. That's a fact. Most of them are either on opiates or antidepressants. Now, don't get me wrong. I have family members who suffer from depression, okay? Thank the Lord they're on antidepressants. It's not their fault. There's a chemical imbalance in their brain. So I'm not saying I'm against antidepressants. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, when you have it on such a wide prevalent scale, mind-altering drugs, that's what many of them are. Well, if you're going to alter people's minds, you're going to alter their behavior. I mean, it's just common sense. 50% of Americans are on 2 prescription drugs, American adults. So I'll tell you what's changed. We've become pill nation. We've become a nation of pill poppers. And yet nobody wants to discuss the possible long-term consequences or effects, if any, but it's there. That's changed. Let me tell you something else that's changed. Teachers everywhere, it doesn't matter, inner city, rural, suburban, black, white, Asian, brown, male, female, young, old, all of them tell me the same thing. over the last 25 to 30 years, they have noticed in the students antisocial behavior, a complete disrespect for authority, violent behavior. They go, in the 70s and 80s, it was chewing gum, it was talking out of place, it was whatever. Now we get physically assaulted. Now they bring guns to schools. Now it's drugs. Now they're literally perpetrating assaults on one another. They have no respect for the rules, no respect for one another. STDs are through the roof. In other words, basic norms of civilized behavior are breaking down. That's just a fact. The teachers say the classrooms have become almost like a jungle. Something is happening. Something is happening. I think the breakdown of the family, the loss of a sense of right and wrong, of good and evil, I think there's no question about it. But I also think there's something else. It's the rise of social media and the internet. And look, I use the internet, I use social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I get a lot of my news now on the internet, I subscribe to multiple digital newspapers, but there's no question about it when you see with the video games, the way people are into virtual reality. Look, I went recently to the Olive Garden at Patriots Place. There's my wife, my two little bambinos. I'm looking across the restaurant. By the way, very good food. I had the tour of Italy. Delicious, but let that go. And I see a mother and a father with two kids. The son is on the phone. The daughter is on the phone. Like whatever, on the internet phone, whatever. I don't know what they're doing, texting, playing. The mother is on the iPhone, and the father is on the iPhone. The whole meal. I don't mean checking for a quick update. I mean literally the whole meal. I'm like, I said to Grace, I go, are they even going to say a word to one another? Like once, something? How's the food? Pass the pepper, pass the salt, anything. Is your pasta al dente? Like anything. Nothing. Nothing. And so what to me is becoming obvious is that if you're glued to the internet, if you're glued to the television, if you're glued to the iPhone, you can't distinguish anymore between reality and virtual reality. Human contact, human life, has no meaning, or it's losing its meaning. And something else, the value of human life. And so these are factors that to me are contributing. There's no question in my mind. Look at Columbine. The kids thought it was one big video game. Hey, let's shoot up a school. Ha, 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 ha. It's like in the video game. Ha, 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 ha. You go to Columbine. You go to Sandy Hook, that poor Adam Lanza. Okay, he was mentally ill. But she had him play video games. What is he, like 12, 14, 16 hours a day? In other words, in shooting after shooting after shooting, what you see is a dangerous disconnect from any kind of appreciation of the value of human life or even of being connected to the world. And I think we're starting to pay the consequence. There's a good side to technology, but there's also a very bad and dangerous side. Agree, disagree? Brittany, I know you want to weigh in on this. We talked about this. You think a lot of this has to do, obviously, with social media.
I think it has a lot to do with social media. And I agree with you. When you go to restaurants, people, they don't even look at each other anymore. They're too busy taking pictures on their cell phones, tweeting, putting pictures up on Instagram, Facebook, updating their statuses. And I think that there are a lot of websites out there, Jeff, that, how ridiculous can you be? And they'll post videos of themselves being so drunk, falling down the stairs, jumping off of tables, jumping off of balconies onto tables in college and everything. There's all these websites out there where it's, how can I be outrageous? And what can I do to top the last video that was posted of someone outrageous? So I think that, everyone wants their claim to fame, and so people are just acting out. Do I think that this is what led this man to killing 58 people and wounding 515, maybe 525? No. But I think that you're right. We live in a virtual reality almost. And people have like virtual girlfriends and boyfriends and things like that. And it's just very strange. So I think that this whole social media and you're constantly looking at your phone and at a computer and people are just working constantly and,
We're becoming desensitized.
Well, we also don't know how to communicate. Like there's an issue and you don't know how to communicate with someone that that you're having an issue, so you just kind of avoid it. Then you blow up almost. So we have no communication skills anymore. We're just so used to texting and emailing each other that we don't know how to have a conversation anymore. So people act out because of that.
617-266-6868. Rebecca in Sudbury. Go ahead, Rebecca. Rebecca, call back. We got a problem with your phone. Let's go to Bill in Newton. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Bill.
You're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you.
And I've said this before. I've told you this, but I want to repeat. As long as you keep in the mix that this gentleman, this shooter, was possibly programmed, just a possibility, then you're really doing a public service to people. Because I'm convinced that he may have been programmed. What do
Bill,
you think?
when you say programmed, what do you mean? Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Well, the Operation Monarch, the CIA's Operation Monarch back in the 50s, and ways to get people to do your bidding, to assassinate people, and no way to trace it back.
Bill, thank you for that call. I mean, look, we don't know. I mean, honestly, Bill, we really don't know. I will say this, and this needs to be said. This, right, in theory, is a domestic shooting. Remember what the FBI's told us. ISIS was not involved. So if this is a domestic shooting, I've never seen it. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look up Charleston, Dylan Roof. Look up Sandy Hook. Look up Columbine. Look at all the big famous massacres. CIA has never issued a statement. Why on this massacre did the CIA have to come out and issue a statement? Their job is foreign intelligence, not domestic intelligence. It's foreign intelligence. FBI is domestic intelligence. So when I saw that, I don't want to get off track here, but when I saw the CIA issue a statement, I'm like, what? Why is the CIA getting involved? That to me was a big red flag. I'm just saying. Tony, you're up next. Go ahead, Tony.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for taking my phone call.
My pleasure. Go ahead, Tony.
I just wanted to piggyback on the social media thing. I think that people, since reality TV came into play, really want to make a difference in the world, and that everybody feels like they need to be famous. They need to be the pinnacle of the movement. And I get this really weird gut feeling, this is my conspiracy theory, that this guy's life was going down the toilet. He said, let me do something good for the country. Didn't care that he was killing people. I think this is all about gun control for him, too. If you kind of get where I'm going with
Tony,
that.
interesting. In other words, maybe he's a leftist, and you know what? If I rack up all these guns and I massacre all these people, I'm going to be a martyr to the pro-gun control cause. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, let me ask you this. It's been about 25, 30 years now. A lot of mass shootings, mass murder. We didn't have this nothing like this before. We had guns before, a lot of guns. What's changed? What is happening in our culture? What's your theory? 617-266-6868. More with your calls next. Robert in Waltham. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things, Jeff. Gun control. I mean, I went to the 9th grade. I never went to high school. I have the brains enough to know that gun control is so stupid because who's going to get it but the criminals? Those are the ones that are going to get the guns. Those criminals are going to get the guns, just like you get cigarettes or booze and anything else.
Robert, you're completely right. Again, look at France. Complete gun control. What did the Islamic terrorists do? They got machine guns. If evil people want to get guns, trucks, you name it, pipe bombs, pressure cooker bombs, they'll use anything to murder people if they want to. So gun control, you know what ends up happening? It ends up disarming people like you. Not the bad guys, the good guys. Rob in Weymouth. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
Great. The thing that struck me is when they were breaching the door for the guy's hotel, they kept referring to him in the singular and as just I think they said he.
Yes.
But they never said a plural. Now, why would they just assume it was only one person? I'm sure they checked at the desk and said, who's checked into this room? But they were pretty definitive that it was a single person.
You know, Rob, I never thought of that. That is
I only heard the recording twice, but if you listen to
No, you're right. No, you're right. I've heard it. I mean, we've played it on the air, and I never thought of that, but that is very true. Now, you're right. I would assume they would just say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. I'm going to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I just figure the SWAT showing up, they're assuming there's, it could be more people. I mean, how many SWAT guys were they going in after one person? Now, he could have blown the whole apartment up, the whole room up. I understand that, but it seemed very strange. They were very clear that, he or him. I don't know how they referred to it, but I never heard.
No, they kept saying he. No, Rob, that's a very interesting point. Now, I assume, that's another thing though. He checked in under Mary Lou Danley. So anyway, maybe they said, well, he checked in. It was only one person that checked in, although he checks in under a female's name. But maybe they said, no, we saw him at the desk. No, he's a guy. He's a man. But still, I mean, how do you know? He could have other people in there. Why did you assume so quickly it's just the he? To me, that's very interesting. Can I squeeze one more? Who do you want me to go to? Lou in Rhode Island. Lou, I've literally got 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, Jeff. What we have now is where people are now dissociating. They're dissociating from playing too many video games. And that basically removes themselves from their body and from their feelings. There's a breakdown of morality. The marijuana today is very, very strong. It's being used in middle schools, high schools. Kids in college are now binge drinking. They're having hookup sex. They have no super ego, no sense of morality, nothing inside to guide them. So they're easily manipulated by whoever's out there, be it like somebody like Antifa or Black Lives Matter.
Lou, look, we're going to continue this tomorrow. Another reason we've taken God out of our society and out of our schools. I got to go. Bye-bye.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 3 o'clock.